One of my subscribers asked me to make a video for all the people who are like 30, 35 and over. They said that they think a lot of people in that age, especially now, and they were talking to themselves, saying basically they themselves felt this, we're going through some kind of a modified midlife crisis. This isn't unusual. In fact, most midlife crises begin around 40s. Oftentimes it's a couple of years before 40, so maybe 35 to 40 years old. And what happens is there's basically a time when you're triggered. Maybe a parent's illness or their death, or maybe a child, a loss of a child, a miscarriage. Maybe it's something with a good friend. Something happens to a good friend, they were together, they divorced, or possibly something that happened at work. But whatever it was, there's a significant trigger. And this trigger begins playing in your mind. You start becoming unhappy. You start looking at your life and you're wondering, is this all there is? Which brings us into the crisis stage. The crisis stage is when you're really feeling low about your life. You're comparing yourself to other people. You're feeling like maybe they have more and you have less, or you've worked so hard and here they are making it and you're still way behind. You begin feeling a little competitive. And with that, if your relationship isn't going well, you also start comparing your marriage or your relationship with other people. This is a prime time for cheating or for betrayal with money or anything. It can be a time especially for emotional cheating. And the reason I bring this up is we know a lot of people, their relationships fall victim to emotional affairs. And the biggest reason for that is people stop communicating during this time. This time is usually a busy time in couples' lives. They might have small ones at home. They might be busy in their career. It hits them at a time they're not expecting it. But this crisis period, the sooner you can identify it, the sooner you can start aligning your thoughts and get back on track. Telling yourself this is a crisis period of a time, a midlife crisis in my life, or a modified midlife crisis in my life. The resolution stage is when you finally hit reality and you start going, you know what? This really isn't about my marriage. This isn't about my relationship. Maybe it's about me. What have I recently gone through? What have I recently struggled with that is really consistently making me feel badly about my life? It could be feeling buffed at work or passed over, or it could be something with the death or the loss of a good friend. Even a loss of a good friend that you didn't see often, whether they moved out of the country or whether the relationship just ended or fizzled because you couldn't get together anymore. Whatever it is, that can have a significant impact on how you feel about yourself. Also, what's really important to remember is happiness, generalized well-being, is shaped like a U. And researchers have found that this is consistent with more than 132 countries. The U looks like this. You start when, after about the age of 20, it starts going down and it hits the low part of the U around mid-40s. And if you think about it, this is when people have children at home, or maybe teenagers, or maybe elderly parents. And this is when people are at the most dissatisfaction in their life. There is no doubt that this is a primary reason for the increased number of suicides we see in late 40s, early 50s men. Especially, men are more lethal with suicide action usually than women. And then as you get older, like 55, 60, you're up on the other side. And you'll talk to people who are in their 60s, 70s, and they're very happy. They're less worried about life. They're less worried about the new generation. They actually many times will engage more with the newer generation. And this is because they're on that upswing. They kind of have a vision from their experience, from seeing what they saw in the past, and that helps them go forward. If you can remember this when you're in your own modified midlife crisis, you won't scare yourself so much that you act out with someone else. And also reassure yourself that when you're in those bad parts of your relationship, your marriage, when you don't feel noticed, you don't feel appreciated, that is a perfect opportunity to reach out, not only to good friends, but find some marriage mentors. These people don't have to be therapists. They just have to be people that you recognize and you have a lot of appreciation for the way they treat their partner. Try to set up dinners with them. Try to talk to them more. They're probably going to be a little bit older, and that's okay. Doesn't even matter if they're in your age range. What's more important is that you trust them with what's going on in your relationship enough so you can be honest and you can take their advice, because many times these marriage mentors give good advice, what they've done in the past, and they're the type that stuck with it, which is something I think is so important, honoring the commitment, and when it's not going well, then going to therapy. Do the things you need to do to salvage and restore your relationship rather than living in misery.